The space station Nexus Prime floated in the dark void between stars. Its metal walls hummed with the sound of air recyclers and power generators. Inside the main meeting hall, humans moved around making final preparations for the most important day in their history. Ambassador Marcus Vale stood at the large window looking out at the stars. He wore his best diplomatic uniform, dark blue with golden stripes on the sleeves. His gray hair was neatly combed back, and his face showed the calm confidence of a man who had spent 30 years solving problems between different groups of people. "Sir, they will arrive in 20 minutes, said Commander Elena Reeves as she walked up behind him. She was the head of security for the human delegation. Her black uniform was practical and simple, with no decorations except for her rank insignia. Elena had short brown hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. "Are you nervous, Commander?" Marcus asked without turning from the window. "Always am before something new," Elena replied honestly. "But that keeps me sharp." Near the entrance to the hall, Jake Morrison checked his equipment one more time. He was young, maybe 25, with sandy hair and eager blue eyes. This was his first major assignment since joining the diplomatic security team. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted his communication device. "Relax, rookie," said one of the other guards. "Just remember your training," Jake nodded but kept fidgeting with his gear. He had read all the files about the Telethy Empire. They were one of the most powerful groups in the galaxy. What made them special was their ability to read minds. They could touch someone and know exactly what that person was thinking. The Telethy used this power to make peace between different alien species. When two groups had a disagreement, the Telethy would read their minds and find a solution that worked for everyone. They had prevented hundreds of wars this way. "Incoming ship on approach vector," announced the station's computer system. "Telethy vessel requesting permission to dock." Marcus straightened his uniform one last time. "Grant them permission and activate the translation systems." The docking bay filled with a soft blue light as the alien ship settled into place. The airlock doors opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, two figures stepped through. The first was tall and thin, almost 7 feet in height. His skin was pale blue, and his head was larger than a human's, with no hair at all. His eyes were solid black, like looking into deep space. He wore flowing robes of silver and white that seemed to move even when there was no wind. This was High Telepath Vexter, leader of the Telethy diplomatic mission. He moved with the smooth confidence of someone who had never been surprised by anything. Behind him walked a smaller figure in similar robes, carrying a small device that glowed softly. "That must be his aide," Elena whispered to Jake. The file said her name is Krelena. The aide was shorter than Vexler, maybe 6 feet tall, with the same blue skin and black eyes. She stayed 2 steps behind her leader, watching everything. With careful attention, Marcus stepped forward and bowed slightly, as the protocol demanded. "Hi, Telepath Vexler, welcome to Nexus Prime. I am Ambassador Marcus Vale, speaking for the human species." Vexler's voice was deep and seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Ambassador Vale, we have traveled far to meet your people. The galaxy speaks much of humans, though the stories are contradictory." "Stories often are," Marcus replied with a smile. "Perhaps it is time for truth instead of stories." Vexler nodded slowly. "Indeed, truth is what we seek. In our culture, we begin all important meetings with the mind touch. It allows us to understand the true nature of those we speak with. Will you permit this?" Marcus had expected this. The briefing files had explained the Telethy custom. When they touched someone's hand, they could read that person's thoughts and emotions. It was considered the highest form of trust and respect. "I would be honored," Marcus said, extending his right hand. Elena tensed slightly. She did not like the idea of aliens reading her ambassador's mind, but this was necessary for the alliance they needed. Earth required the protection and trade that came with joining the galactic community. Vexler stepped forward, his black eyes fixed on Marcus's face. He raised his own hand, which had long, thin fingers ending in what looked like small claws. For a moment he paused, as if listening to something only he could hear. Your species is, interesting, Vexter said quietly. I sense something different about your minds. Something I have not encountered before. Different how? Marcus asked. We shall see, Vexter replied, and reached out to touch Marcus's outstretched hand. The moment their skin made contact, everything changed. Vexter's confident expression vanished. His black eyes went wide, showing fear for the first time in his long life. His mouth opened in a silent gasp, and his tall body began to shake. Hi, telepath! Krillona cried out, dropping her device and rushing forward, but Vexter could not hear her. His mind was trapped in something he had never experienced before, where he expected to find the calm, ordered thoughts that existed in every other species. He instead found chaos. Marcus's mind was not one voice, but thousands, all talking at the same time. There were memories of childhood fears mixed with adult worries about the meeting. There were songs he had heard on the radio competing with tactical plans for the negotiation. There were random thoughts about what to have for dinner fighting, with deep philosophical questions about humanity's place in the universe, and underneath it all was something even worse. A darkness that humans lived with every day but somehow ignored. It was the knowledge that life was fragile, that death could come at any moment, that the universe was vast and cold and did not care about any individual person, yet somehow, impossibly, Marcus functioned normally with all of this noise in his head. He carried on conversations, made important decisions, and lived his life while his mind screamed with a million different thoughts and fears. Vexter tried to pull his hand away, but the connection was too strong. He could feel himself being pulled deeper into the storm of human consciousness. His own carefully organized thoughts began to scatter like leaves in a hurricane. No, he whispered, his voice cracking. How do you live with this? Marcus, unaware of the telepath's distress, tried to steady him. Are you all right? Should we stop? The concern in Marcus's voice only made it worse. Even while his mind was full of chaos, the human was worried about a being he had just met. The kindness existed alongside the darkness. The hope lived next to the despair. And somehow Marcus held it all together without going insane. Vexter finally managed to break the connection, stumbling backward as if he had been struck by lightning. His aide caught him as he fell to his knees, his body shaking uncontrollably. The void, he gasped, his voice barely a whisper. The endless screaming void. How do they survive it? Elena and Jake moved forward, their hands near their weapons, but Marcus held up a hand to stop them. Vexter looked up at Marcus with terror in his black eyes. Your mind, he said, his voice filled with horror and amazement. It is like standing in the center of a storm made of screaming voices. How are you not mad? Marcus frowned, genuinely confused. I don't understand. My mind feels normal to me. That was when Vexter began to scream. Vexter's screams echoed through the meeting hall like the sound of breaking glass. His tall blue body convulsed on the floor while Krillena knelt beside him, her hands glowing with a soft purple light as she tried to help him. Get Dr. Cross here immediately, Commander Elena Reeves ordered into her communication device. She kept her weapon ready but did not point it at the aliens. Something was very wrong, but she did not think the Telephy were attacking. Jake Morrison stood frozen near the door, his young face pale with shock. He had never seen anything like this before. The mighty telepathic alien who had seemed so confident moments ago was now curled up like a frightened child. What happened to him? Jake whispered. I don't know, Elena replied, her eyes never leaving the two aliens. But we need to find out fast. Dr. Lydia Cross arrived within minutes, carrying her medical kit. She was in her 40s with graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her blue eyes were sharp and intelligent, missing nothing as she quickly examined the scene. Don't touch him, Krillena said urgently as Dr. Cross approached. The mind touch has damaged his neural pathways. Physical contact could make it worse. Dr. Cross stopped and studied the alien aide. You speak our language very well. Can you tell me what happened? Krillena looked up with her large black eyes. I am a lower-level telepath. I learned your language from the minds of your advanced team when they first made contact. But what happened? To Vexler. This has never occurred before in our history. What exactly did he experience? Dr. Cross asked, pulling out her scanner to check Vexler's vital signs from a distance. He performed the mind touch with your ambassador, Krillina explained. It is a simple procedure that we have done with thousands of species. We connect with their consciousness to understand their true nature and intentions. Ambassador Marcus Vale, who had been standing quietly nearby, stepped forward. I felt nothing unusual, just a slight tingling sensation when we touched hands. Krillina stared at him with something like fear. You felt nothing because the chaos is normal for you, but for us. She struggled to find the right words. Imagine living your entire life in a quiet library and then suddenly being thrown into the middle of a war zone with explosions and screaming all around you. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway, and Captain Rex Banner entered the room. He was a large man with a graying beard and the confident walk of someone who had commanded starships for 20 years. His uniform was crisp and his medals showed he had seen real combat. What's the situation? Captain Banner asked quickly. Taking in the scene? First contact went wrong, Elena reported. The alien tried to read the ambassador's mind and had some kind of breakdown. Captain Banner looked at Vexler, who was now breathing more steadily but still shaking. Can he recover? His vital signs are stabilizing, Dr. Cross said, checking her scanner readings. But I have no idea what kind of psychological damage might have occurred. Krillina placed her hands on Vexler's forehead, and both aliens began to glow with that soft purple light. After a few minutes, she looked up with a troubled expression. He is sharing his experience with me, she said. What he found in your ambassador's mind. It is beyond our understanding. What do you mean? Dr. Cross asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. Krillina stood up slowly, her movements careful and deliberate. In every species we have encountered, consciousness flows in an orderly pattern. Thoughts move in logical sequences, emotions are controlled and purposeful. The mind is like a calm river flowing toward the ocean. She looked at Ambassador Vale with something between fascination and horror. But human minds are not rivers, they are storms. Violent, chaotic storms with lightning and thunder and wind blowing in all directions at once. Jake Morrison found his voice. But that's just normal thinking, isn't it? Everyone has lots of thoughts at the same time. No, Krillina said firmly. No other species thinks like humans do. In a telepathy mind, we focus on one thought at a time. We consider it carefully, make our decision, and then move to the next. Thought. We do not have multiple conversations happening simultaneously in our heads. Dr. Cross pulled out a small recording device. Can you describe exactly what Vexler experienced? Krillina looked at the unconscious high telepath, then back at the humans. He felt your ambassador thinking about the negotiation, but also about his breakfast this morning. He was simultaneously planning diplomatic strategies and remembering a song from his childhood. He was worried about making a good impression while also thinking about repairs needed on his ship. That sounds normal, Captain Banner said. But there was more, Krillina continued. Underneath all those surface thoughts, he found layers upon layers of memories, fears, hopes, and dreams all mixed together. Your ambassador was thinking about his dead wife while negotiating with us? He was remembering his first command while planning for retirement. He was feeling sad about past mistakes while being excited about future possibilities. Dr. Cross began to understand. Multiple parallel processing streams. We're not just thinking about one thing at a time. We're thinking about dozens of things simultaneously. Hundreds, Krillina corrected. And beneath all of that, there was something else. Something dark and terrible that all humans carry but somehow ignore. What kind of darkness? Elena asked, her hand moving instinctively toward her weapon. Krillina struggled to explain. The knowledge of death. The awareness that life is temporary and fragile. Most species either do not think about mortality or they think about it rarely and briefly, but humans. You carry the weight of your own mortality with you every moment of every day. She looked around at all the humans in the room. You know that you will die, that everyone you love will die, that your entire species will eventually die. Yet somehow you continue to function. You make plans, you fall in love, you create art, you explore the stars. How is this possible? Dr. Cross was fascinated now, because we've adapted to it. Evolution on Earth was particularly harsh. We developed minds that could handle multiple threats simultaneously. More than that, Krillena said. You developed minds that could hold contradictory thoughts without breaking. You can be happy and sad at the same time. You can love someone and be angry with them. You can be afraid and brave simultaneously. Lieutenant Amy Foster entered the room, having been called by Captain Banner. She was the ship's communications officer, a young woman with red hair and intelligent brown eyes. She had been monitoring alien communications frequencies. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from the telepathy ship," she reported. "They're asking about their delegation. Should I respond?" Krillena looked alarmed. "Please do not tell them." "What happened yet?" "The Telepathy Council must understand the full situation before they make any decisions about humanity." Vexler's eyes suddenly opened and he sat up slowly. His voice was weak but clear. "The human mind is like a library on fire, where all the books are screaming and the words are falling off the pages like rain. Yet somehow, the librarian continues to work as if nothing is wrong." He looked directly at Ambassador Vale. "How do you bear it? How does your species survive with such chaos in your heads?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "I suppose we don't know any other way to think. To us, this is just normal consciousness." "Normal," Vexler repeated, his voice filled with wonder and fear. "What you call normal would drive any other species to madness within hours." Dr. Cross realized the implications. This could change everything we know about human psychology and consciousness. Vexler slowly stood up with Krillena's help. He looked at each human in the room with his large black eyes. "I have touched the minds of over 300 different species. I have felt the thoughts of beings who live in gas-giant atmospheres and creatures who exist as pure energy, but nothing has prepared me for the storm that lives inside human consciousness." He paused, gathering his strength. "If this is what one human mind contains, what happens when you act together? What kind of species survives by living in constant mental chaos?" 3 days later, a massive Earth military ship appeared near Nexus Prime. The vessel was twice the size of any other ship at the station, its gray hull covered with communication arrays and weapon systems. This was the Aya's Resolute flagship. Of Admiral Stone was a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair cut short and pale, blue eyes that seemed to see everything. She had commanded Earth's space forces for 15 years and had never lost a battle. Behind her walked Dr. Pavel Novak, a thin man with wild black hair and thick glasses who carried 3 different computer tablets. "Ambassador Vale, Admiral," Stone said as she entered the meeting room. "I came as soon as I received your report. The implications are staggering." Dr. Novak immediately began setting up his equipment without waiting for introductions. He was the leading expert on alien psychology and had spent his entire career studying how different species think. "Where are the telepathy?" Admiral Stone asked, looking around the room. "They requested time to recover and consult with their ship." Commander Elena Reeves reported, "High telepath Vexler has been in meditation for 2 days straight. Meditation or therapy?" Dr. Novak asked without looking up from his computers. "Both, from what we understand," Dr. Cross replied. "The experience traumatized him severely." Admiral Stone studied the reports on her tablet. "According to this, our thoughts are too chaotic for telepathic species to handle. Is that accurate?" "More than chaotic," Dr. Cross explained. "Apparently, human consciousness operates on multiple levels simultaneously in ways that other species cannot comprehend." The door opened and Krillena entered, followed by Vexler, who looked much better than he had 3 days ago. The high telepath's movements were still careful, but his confidence seemed to be returning. "Admiral Stone," Vexler said with a slight bow, "the Telepathy Council has been informed of our discovery." They have requested additional testing before we can proceed with any alliance. What kind of testing? Admiral Stone asked directly. Krillana stepped forward. We need to determine if Ambassador Vale's mind is typical of humans or if he is somehow unusual. The Council requires proof that this mental chaos is normal for your species. Dr. Novak looked up from his computers with obvious excitement. Fascinating. A controlled study of human consciousness versus alien telepathy. This could revolutionize our understanding of how the brain works. I volunteer, said Engineer Tom Bradley, who had been working on the station's systems. He was a practical man in his 30s with calloused hands and a friendly smile. If it helps our people join the galactic community, I'm willing to let the alien poke around in my head. Tom's offer was quickly followed by others. Pilot Lisa Chun raised her hand. She was a skilled fighter pilot with short black hair and quick reflexes. Count me in too. Medic Dave Parker, a quiet man who rarely spoke unless someone was injured, also volunteered. Someone should be here with medical training just in case. Admiral Stone looked at each volunteer carefully. Are you sure about this? We don't know what the long-term effects might be. The risk is minimal, Vexler assured her. I will be much more prepared this time. Krillana will also assist, and we will take proper precautions. Dr. Novak was practically bouncing with excitement. This is incredible. We'll have data on human consciousness from multiple subjects. We can compare brain patterns, analyze thought processes, map neural pathways. Doctor, Admiral Stone said firmly, focus on the immediate goal first. The testing area was set up in the station's medical bay. Dr. Cross monitored all the equipment, while Dr. Novak recorded everything. Vexler and Krillana prepared themselves through meditation and mental exercises. Engineer Tom Bradley sat in the first chair, looking relaxed despite the circumstances. So, what exactly are you going to feel when you touch my mind? Vexler considered the question. Imagine if I asked you to drink from a fire hose while riding a motorcycle through a thunderstorm. That is approximately what touching a human mind feels like. Sounds fun, Tom said with a grin. Krillana approached first, being the weaker telepath. She would attempt the mind touch to see if she could handle what her superior could not. Her hand touched Tom's, and immediately her expression changed to one of shock. By the void, she whispered. He's thinking about engine repairs, his sister's birthday, what to eat for lunch, a girl he knew in school, and whether we're going to attack him. All at the same time. Tom looked confused. Yeah, so that's just normal thinking. Krillana broke the connection and staggered back. Normal? How do you make decisions when your mind is full of so many different thoughts? I just pick the most important one and focus on it, Tom explained. The other stuff stays in the background until I need it. Dr. Novak was furiously taking notes. Subject exhibits typical human multi-track consciousness. Alien telepath shows severe distress at contact. Next was pilot Lisa Chun. Vexler himself attempted this mind touch, having prepared himself better. The moment they connected, his black eyes went wide. She's flying, he gasped. In her mind, she's piloting a ship through an asteroid field, while simultaneously calculating fuel consumption, monitoring weapon systems, and remembering her flight training. But she's also thinking about her family back on Earth and planning her next vacation, Lisa shrugged. Multitasking. It's kind of required for combat pilots. This isn't multitasking, Vexler said, breaking the connection. This is like running 12 different computer programs simultaneously on the same processor without any of them crashing. When it came time for Medic Dave Parker's turn, both telepathy hesitated. He's the quietest one, Krillana observed. Perhaps his mind will be calmer. They were wrong. Dave's mind was just as chaotic as the others, but in a different way. Where Tom thought about mechanical problems and Lisa thought about flying, Dave's thoughts were focused on healing and helping others. But the complexity was the same. He's diagnosing everyone in the room, Vexler reported with amazement. He's noticed that Admiral Stone has a slight limp, that Dr. Cross needs more sleep, that Tom has a minor nutritional deficiency. He's doing medical assessments while having a conversation about telepathy. Dr. Novak was practically vibrating with excitement as he analyzed the data. Fascinating! Each human shows the same multi-layered consciousness but focused on their area of expertise. The engineer thinks about systems, the pilot thinks about flying, the medic thinks about health. Yet all of them maintain the same underlying chaos. Admiral Stone studied the results on the main screen. So what does this mean for humanity's place in the galaxy? Vexter and Krillona exchanged looks before the High Telepath answered. It means you are unlike any species we have ever encountered. Your minds operate in ways that should be impossible. But is that good or bad? Commander Reeves asked. We don't know yet, Krillona admitted. In some ways, it could be a tremendous advantage. Your ability to process multiple thoughts simultaneously makes you incredibly adaptable. Dr. Novak looked up from his data analysis. The preliminary results suggest that human consciousness evolved to handle extreme complexity. We can hold contradictory ideas, process multiple inputs, and maintain awareness of numerous variables all at the same time. Every other species, we know, focuses on one thing at a time, Vexter explained. They think through problems step by step in logical order. They make decisions based on careful analysis of single variables. And that works for them, Tom asked. It works very well, Krillona replied. Most galactic civilizations have achieved great success through ordered, logical thinking. Admiral Stone frowned. Then why does our chaotic thinking matter? Vexter was about to answer when alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors and the automated voice announced, "Alert! Hostile ships approaching. All personnel to battle stations." Through the large windows, they could see 3 dark ships closing in on Nexus Prime. The vessels were sleek and predatory, with weapon ports glowing ominously. "Pirates," Admiral Stone said grimly, recognizing the ship design. "Vorthak raiders." The Telethi looked confused and frightened as chaos erupted around them. Humans ran through the corridors with purpose and determination, but to telepathic senses, their minds must have seemed like explosions of activity. Dr. Cross was already checking her medical supplies while tracking the positions of all personnel. Engineer Tom was thinking about power distribution and defensive systems. Pilot Lisa was calculating attack vectors and escape routes. Vexter and Krillona stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sudden surge of intense human thought patterns echoing through their telepathic senses. "Now," Admiral Stone said grimly as she prepared for battle, "you'll see what human chaos can really do." The Vorthak raider ships moved like dark predators through space, their hull surfaces reflecting no light. Each vessel was roughly the size of a destroyer, armed with plasma cannons and boarding equipment. These pirates were known throughout the galaxy for their brutal tactics and their ability to disable other ships using psychic attacks on Nexus Prime. Chaos erupted as the station's defenses came online. Warning lights flashed red throughout the corridors, and the sound of running feet echoed from every direction. But while most species would panic in such a situation, the humans moved with deadly efficiency. Admiral Stone stood in the command center, her fingers dancing across multiple control panels simultaneously. She was coordinating defensive fire, managing evacuation procedures, and planning counterattacks all at the same time. Her mind processed dozens of variables without any apparent effort. "Vorthak raiders confirmed," reported Lieutenant Amy Foster from her communications station. 3 ships, heavily armed. They're broadcasting the standard surrender demand. "Tell them to go to hell," Admiral Stone replied without hesitation. "Tom, what's our power situation?" Engineer Tom Bradley was already at the power distribution console, his hands moving across the controls with practiced skill. "Main reactors at full power, backup systems online. I can give you everything you need, Admiral." Meanwhile, Vexter and Krillona stood frozen near the main display screen. The sudden explosion of human mental activity was overwhelming their telepathic senses. Every human on the station was thinking at maximum capacity, and the combined effect was like standing in the middle of a mental hurricane. How do they function in this chaos? Krillena whispered, her hands pressed to her temples in pain. Vexthor watched Admiral Stone in fascination. Look at her mind. She's simultaneously tracking the enemy ships, calculating firing solutions, monitoring station integrity, planning escape routes, and worrying about casualties. Yet she appears completely calm. Dr. Cross was in the medical bay, preparing for wounded while also helping coordinate the civilian evacuation. Her thoughts jumped between medical procedures, supply inventories, and emergency protocols without any confusion. Medical bay ready for casualties, she reported over the communication system. Evacuation routes Alpha and Beta are clear. Pilot Lisa Chun had reached one of the station's defensive weapon platforms. Her fighter pilot training made her perfect for operating the heavy plasma cannons. As she powered up the weapons, her mind was calculating targeting solutions, tracking multiple enemy vessels, and anticipating their attack patterns. Weapons online, Lisa announced. I have firing solutions on all 3 targets. The first Vorthak attack came as expected. But instead of conventional weapons, the raiders used their psychic assault cannons. These devices sent waves of mental confusion and fear toward enemy crews, normally paralyzing them with terror and making them unable to fight back. The psychic blast hit Nexus Prime like an invisible wave. Vexthor and Krillena immediately collapsed, their telepathic minds unable to handle the assault. Other alien crew members on the station staggered and fell, clutching their heads in agony, but the humans barely seemed to notice. Did anyone else feel that? Tom asked casually as he continued working on the power systems. Feel what? Admiral Stone replied, not looking up from her tactical display. Dr. Novak, who had been monitoring the alien telepaths, suddenly understood what was happening. The psychic attack had no effect on us. Our minds are already so chaotic that additional mental noise doesn't make any difference. The Vorthak pirates were clearly confused. Their primary weapon had always worked against every species they encountered. Ships would become helpless after the first psychic blast, making them easy targets for boarding and looting. They're firing again, Lieutenant Foster reported. Same type of energy signature. The second psychic wave was stronger than the first, designed to completely overwhelm the minds of anyone it touched. Vexthor and Krillena curled up on the floor, unable to cope with the mental assault. But the humans continued working as if nothing had happened. Sergeant Maya Rodriguez had arrived with a squad of Marines, all carrying heavy weapons and moving with military precision. She was a combat veteran with dark hair and scars on her hands from previous battles. Her mind was focused on tactical situations while simultaneously monitoring her squad, checking equipment status and planning multiple contingencies. Marines in position, Maya reported. Ready for boarding action if they try to dock? Admiral Stone smiled grimly as she realized their advantage. They keep hitting us with psychic attacks, but they're not affecting us at all. Lisa returned fire. The station's plasma cannons opened fire, sending brilliant beams of energy toward the Vorthak ships. Lisa's targeting was perfect, striking the lead raider's engines and causing explosions across its hull. Direct hit, she announced with satisfaction. Their shields are down by 40%. The Vorthak ships responded with conventional weapons, firing plasma bolts and missile salvos at the station. But Admiral Stone had anticipated this, coordinating the station's defensive systems with inhuman efficiency. Tom, transfer power to forward shields, she ordered. Maya, prepare for possible boarding attempts on Deck 7. Dr. Cross continued monitoring the situation from the medical bay while treating the alien crew members, who had been affected by the psychic attacks. Her mind processed medical data while tracking the battle's progress and planning for different casualty scenarios. Vexthor, still recovering on the floor, watched the humans with growing amazement. They're not just immune to the psychic attacks, he gasped to Krillena. They're using the chaos as an advantage. Commander Elena Reeves had taken position at the security station, coordinating defensive measures throughout the station. Her thoughts jumped between threat assessments, personnel locations, and contingency plans without any apparent effort. Security teams Alpha and Beta in position, Elena reported. All critical areas are protected. The battle continued for 20 minutes, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Vorthak raiders were completely unprepared to face an enemy that was immune to their primary weapon. Their conventional attacks were well coordinated by Admiral Stone's defensive strategy, Lisa. Chun managed to disable the second raider ship with a perfectly placed shot to its reactor core. The vessel went dark and began drifting away from the station. 2 ships down, 1 remaining, she announced. The final Vorthak ship attempted to retreat, but Tom Bradley had been monitoring their engine signatures. They're trying to run, but their hyperdrive is damaged. I'm reading plasma leaks in their propulsion system. Admiral Stone made the tactical decision quickly. Disable them. We need to find out why they attacked a neutral station. Within minutes, all 3 Vorthak ships were either destroyed or disabled. The threat was over, and Nexus Prime was safe. As the battle concluded, Dr. Novak helped Vexler and Krilluna to their feet. The 2 Telethi were still shaken from the psychic attacks, but they were recovering. How? Vexler asked weakly. How? Were you completely unaffected by weapons that disable entire fleets? Dr. Cross explained while checking his vital signs. Our minds are already dealing with so much internal chaos that external mental interference just gets filtered out as background noise. Admiral Stone turned from her tactical station, finally allowing herself to relax slightly. Every human carries a storm in their head. When someone tries to add more chaos to that storm, we barely notice it. Krilluna looked around at all, though. Humans, who were now calmly returning to their normal duties as if nothing significant had happened. You live with mental chaos that would drive other species insane, but it also makes you immune to psychic attacks. Tom Bradley was already back to routine maintenance, thinking about repairs while simultaneously planning his dinner and remembering a joke he had heard earlier. It's just how we think. Nothing special about it. Vexler stared at him in wonder. Nothing special? You have just demonstrated that humanity possesses a natural defense against one of the most feared weapons in the galaxy. Dr. Novak was excitedly analyzing the data from the battle. This changes everything. Human consciousness isn't just different from other species. It's actually superior in specific circumstances. Pilot Lisa Chun powered down the weapon systems, her mind already shifting from combat mode to post-battle analysis, while thinking about maintenance schedules and what she wanted to watch on her entertainment screen later. Superior how? She asked. Vexler looked at each human in the room with his large black eyes. Through his recovering telepathic senses, he could feel the constant storm of thoughts, memories, plans, and emotions that filled every human mind. What had seemed like a terrible chaos now revealed itself as something else entirely. I can sense something deeper in your minds, he said quietly. Something even you humans may not be aware of. The chaos you carry is not random, it has a purpose. The aftermath of the battle brought an unusual quiet to Nexus Prime. The disabled Vorthak raider ship floated nearby, its crew rescued and imprisoned in the station's detention cells. Admiral Stone stood in the interrogation room, listening to the captured pirates with growing concern. They were hired, she reported to the assembled group in the main conference room. Someone paid them to attack this station during the diplomatic meeting. Dr. Novak looked up from his research tablets. Hired by whom? They don't know, Admiral Stone replied. The contract came through anonymous channels. But someone wanted to disrupt first contact between humans and the Telethi Empire. Vexler sat quietly in his chair, his black eyes studying each human in the room. Since the battle, he had been observing them with his recovering telepathic abilities, and what he discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. There is something I must share with you, Vexler said finally. During the battle, while my telepathic defenses were down, I sensed something unexpected in your minds. Dr. Cross leaned forward with interest. What did you sense? The chaos in human consciousness is not random, Vexler explained slowly. It serves a purpose that even you are not aware of. You are not just immune to psychic attacks, you are unconsciously projecting your mental chaos outward. Commander Elena Reeves frowned. Projecting it like some kind of weapon? Krilluna had been silent since the battle, but now she spoke up. We have been analyzing the data from our mind touches. What we initially thought was simply chaotic thinking is actually a form of mental broadcasting. Tom Bradley looked confused. I don't understand. We're broadcasting our thoughts? Not your thoughts exactly, Vexler corrected. You are broadcasting the chaos itself. Every human constantly transmits a field of mental noise that interferes with telepathic abilities. Dr. Novak's eyes went wide behind his glasses. That's why you had such difficulty with the mind touch. It wasn't just that our thoughts are chaotic. We're actively projecting that chaos into the minds of anyone who tries to read us. Exactly. Krillana confirmed. When I touched your engineer's mind, I was not just experiencing his thoughts. I was being overwhelmed by a psychic field that his brain generates automatically. Admiral Stone considered the implications. So we're naturally broadcasting a jamming signal that disrupts telepathic species? More than that, Vexler said, his voice filled with awe and fear. You are walking psychic storms. Any telepathic being who attempts to invade or control human minds will be overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of your mental emissions. Pilot Lisa Chun tried to wrap her head around the concept, but we don't feel anything. We don't know we're doing it. Of course not, Dr. Cross realized. We evolved with it. To us, it's just normal background activity. But to telepathic species, we must be like walking electromagnetic pulse devices. Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. That explains why the Vortex psychic weapons didn't work on us. We're already generating more mental noise than their weapons could produce. Dr. Novak was frantically taking notes. This is incredible. Human evolution didn't just produce minds that could handle chaos. It produced minds that weaponized chaos as a defense mechanism. Vexler stood up slowly and walked to the large window overlooking space. Do you understand what this means? In a galaxy where most advanced species rely on telepathic abilities for communication, negotiation, and even warfare, humans are naturally immune to all of it. And not just immune, Krillana added. You are actively hostile to telepathic contact. Your minds are fortresses that attack anyone who tries to enter them. Ambassador Marcus Vale, who had been silent during most of the discussion, finally spoke. This changes everything about humanity's role in the galaxy, doesn't it? Vexter turned from the window. The galaxy is full of species that have developed powerful telepathic abilities. The Mindari Empire controls entire sectors through psychic domination. The Cerebral Collective shares consciousness across thousands of worlds. The Thought Lords can rewrite the memories of entire populations. And none of that would work on humans, Admiral Stone realized. Worse, Vexler said grimly. Your presence would disrupt their abilities. A single human in a room full of telepaths would be like setting off a mental flashbang grenade. You would blind us, deafen us, and leave us helpless. Dr. Cross was studying the medical scans from the Mind Touch experiments. The data shows that human brain activity generates electromagnetic fields that are completely unlike any other species. We're natural-born psychic jammers. Tom Bradley scratched his head. So what you're saying is that we're accidentally the most dangerous species in the galaxy to anyone who reads minds. Not accidentally, Krillana corrected. This is clearly an evolutionary adaptation. Earth must have been an incredibly hostile environment to produce minds this resilient. Dr. Novak looked up from his calculations. It makes perfect sense. Earth had multiple extinction events, ice ages, predators, diseases, and natural disasters. Only the most mentally adaptable humans survived to reproduce. Over millions of years, Dr. Cross added, we developed brains that could handle any amount of stress, fear, or chaos. We had to be able to think clearly while running from predators, plan for the future while dealing with immediate threats, and maintain hope despite constant danger. Admiral Stone was beginning to understand the bigger picture. That's why we can function normally during battles while telepathic species are overwhelmed. We're adapted to mental chaos. Vexler returned to his seat, his expression serious. The Telepathy Council will need to know about this, as will the other major powers in the galaxy. What will they do? Elena asked, That depends, Vexler replied. Some will see humans as the ultimate weapon against psychic tyranny. Others will see you as an existential threat to telepathic civilization. Krillona was reviewing data on her portable device. The implications are staggering. Entire galactic governments are built on telepathic hierarchies. What happens when a species appears that is completely immune to psychic control? Dr. Novak had been quietly working on his tablet and suddenly looked up with excitement. I've been analyzing the battle data. When all the humans on the station were thinking intensely during the crisis, the combined psychic emission was measurable from several kilometers away. What does that mean? Lisa asked. It means that when humans work together under stress, they don't just defend against psychic attacks. They actively broadcast a field that can disable telepathic abilities in the surrounding area. Admiral Stone leaned back in her chair. So we're not just individually immune. When we're grouped together and focused, we become a psychic dead zone. Exactly, Dr. Novak confirmed. A human military force would be completely invisible to telepathic surveillance and immune to psychic warfare. Vexler looked at each human in the room with a mixture of respect and concern. You have just described the most powerful military advantage any species has ever possessed. The ability to operate in complete psychic stealth while disrupting the abilities of your enemies. Ambassador Vale stood up and walked to the window. The question is, what do we do with this knowledge? We have a choice, Admiral Stone said. We can use this ability to conquer and dominate, or we can use it to protect and serve, Tom Bradley grinned. I vote for protecting. There are probably a lot of species out there who would like to be free from psychic control, Dr. Cross nodded. We could be guardians against telepathic tyranny. Instead of using our abilities to rule, we use them to prevent others from ruling. Through mind control, Vexler stood up slowly. That is perhaps the most remarkable thing about humans. Despite having the power to dominate the galaxy, your first instinct is to help others. He looked directly at Ambassador Vale. I have touched the minds of hundreds of species. I have felt the thoughts of conquerors, philosophers, scientists, and artists. But I have never encountered a species that carries such chaos in their minds, yet maintains such nobility in their hearts. Krillona activated her communication device. I will contact the Telepathy Council. They need to understand that humanity is not just another species seeking membership in the galactic community. What are we then? Marcus asked. Vexler smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. You are the species that proves the greatest strength comes not from order, but from mastering the storm within. In a universe of ordered minds, you are the beautiful chaos that no force can contain or control. He extended his hand toward Ambassador Vale one final time. The alliance between our peoples will not be one of equals. It will be one of teachers and students, with humans showing the galaxy that there is strength in surviving chaos and hope in the midst of the storm. As they shook hands, Vexler felt the mental chaos again, but this time he was prepared. Instead of fighting it, he let it wash over him like a fierce but cleansing rain. For the first time, he understood that what humans called normal consciousness was actually the most extraordinary thing in the galaxy. The storm in the human mind was not a curse to be endured, but a superpower to be celebrated.